Hello and welcome to Skyline, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Vidya3. Well, tonight I have 9 major international stories, like always, that every Indian living abroad or planning to move abroad must know. These are not just headlines, these are decisions that could change jobs, visas, green cards, permanent residency, and even families. So let's begin with a story that has sent shockwaves across America's Indian IT community. Well, first of all, imagine this. You're working in America on an H-1B visa. You finally got your dream job after maybe years of hard work. Your green card process has already started. Life, it seems stable to you and everything feels like it's finally falling into place. But then, one morning you hear that the US government has started one of the biggest investigations into companies that hire foreign workers. Suddenly, everything changes, and the future that once looked very secure to you, it now feels uncertain. Well, the US Department of Labor has launched a nationwide investigation into fraud related to employment-based visas. Well, federal investigators are looking into whether some staffing companies and consulting firms broke international rules through illegal practices such as fake recruitment, benching workers without pay, in fact, wage kickbacks, and misleading information about employee work location. The investigations also involve federal law enforcement agencies and several companies that have reportedly received subpoenas. Authorities have mentioned large IT consulting firms while making it clear that investigations do not automatically mean any wrongdoing that has been proven. Now, you may ask, why should an ordinary Indian employee worry the investigation, which is against the company, right? Wait. Because when a company comes under investigation, everything connected to that company, it starts slowing down. Visa application, PERM approval, green card processing, and even H-1B extensions can face delays or extra scrutiny. And remember here, an H-1B visa is linked to an employer. If your employer lands in trouble, sometimes you become part of that uncertainty too. This is specifically worrying because thousands of Indians work through consulting companies and third-party vendors across Silicon Valley, Texas, New Jersey, and many other American cities. So if contracts are cancelled, employees could suddenly lose projects. And if someone loses a job, the H-1B clock, it starts ticking. Only 60 days. Just 60 days to find another employer. Otherwise, you have to leave America. Here, experts say that this is the time to check your paperwork very carefully. Is your work location correct? Are these wages matching official records? Do you have every employment document safely secured? Well, these small details may become very important if enforcement becomes stricter. Well, for many Indian professionals, this is no longer just an immigration story. It is about protecting years of hard work, careers, saving, and the future of their family. But yes, while some Indians are worried about keeping the jobs they already have, another group is worrying about something even bigger: getting an H-1B visa in the first place. That's right, every single year, lakhs of students and professionals, they wait for one announcement. Will there be a second H-1B lottery? Many don't get selected in the first round, but they continue to hope. Maybe some selected candidates, they won't file their petition. Maybe USCIS will conduct another lottery this year. That hope, very sadly saying, it's officially over. The US Citizenship and Immigration Services has officially confirmed that the H-1B cap for fiscal year 2027 has been completely filled. All available visa slots were taken during the initial selection process, and there will be no second lottery this year. Well, remaining registrations are being marked as not selected. Well, for thousands of Indian students, this announcement, it feels like a closed door. Now, specifically for those who graduated recently, found an employer, start working on OPT, and were waiting for one more chance. But this year, that second chance, it is simply not coming. Now, here's another major change. The H-1B selection system itself has changed. Earlier, luck played the biggest role, right? Now, salary matters much more. The government has introduced a wage-weighted selection process. That means higher paying jobs getting better chances during selection, while low-paying or maybe entry-level jobs get fewer chances. Federal data also shows a sharp drop in registration as compared to the previous year and a higher share of selected applications holding the advanced US degree. Can you think about what this really means? If you are a fresh graduate, your first salary is naturally lower, right? But under the new system, lower salaries may also mean lower chances of getting selected. That makes life much harder for young professionals entering the American job market. Now, many students are asking difficult questions. Should they continue waiting? Should they move to another country? Should they return to India? Some companies are already exploring alternatives though. Instead of America, they may send employees to Canada, to the UK, or maybe India. Others are looking at visa categories that are not part of H-1B caps, such as jobs with universities or certain research institutions. Well, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. America, it still wants skilled talent. Yes, they do. But the competition has become much more tougher, and every new immigration rule, it raises the bar even higher. Now, let's cross the border into Canada, because while America is making it harder to enter, Canada is making it harder to stay permanently. For years, Canada was seen as the easier option. Many Indians believe that if America does not work out, Canada is always there. But today, that belief is changing. Can you imagine? You have spent years in Canada, you studied there, found a job, paid taxes, created an express entry profile, and finally submitted your permanent residency application. You think it's just a matter of waiting, but then your application is moved to a wait list. Not because there is a mistake, not because your documents are missing, but because there is simply no space left for you. Ladies and gentlemen, Canada has introduced a formal wait list system for permanent residency applications. Under the new process, some applications continue through active processing, while others are officially placed on the wait list because annual immigration quotas have been reached. According to the government figures, roughly about 1/4 of pending economic PR applications are currently waitlisted. And here's the bigger problem. When your application is waitlisted, processing stops completely. Nobody can tell you exactly when it will restart. That creates a huge challenge, maybe because many applicants are living in Canada on temporary work permits. Their work permit may expire long before their PR application is finalized. And then comes the difficult choice. Should they apply for another work permit, move to a visitor status, find another employer, or leave Canada altogether? Well, for thousands of Indian workers, there are no longer hypothetical questions. These are real-life decisions. Canada is also becoming more selective, by the way. The government is increasingly prioritizing specific occupation, including healthcare, skilled trades, and French-speaking candidates. While many general technology professionals, they now need much higher scores to receive the invitation here. So today, ladies and gentlemen, getting permanent residency in Canada is not just about patience. It is about strategy. Every point matters. Every visa expiry date matters. Every immigration decision matters. For thousands of Indian families, Canada is still a land of opportunity, but reaching that opportunity has become a much longer journey. And yes, speaking of Canada here, for many Indians, moving abroad, it has never been just about building a career. It has always been about building a life. A life where one day parents can also join them, grandchildren can grow up with grandparents, and families can finally live under one roof after years of sacrifice. But today, that dream has suffered a major setback. Yes, the Canadian government has announced that it is freezing new applications under the Parents and Grandparents program. That means if you were planning to sponsor your parents for permanent residency in Canada, you can no longer submit a new application. Well, the government has also stopped accepting new interest to sponsor forms and will not issue fresh invitations until further notice. Now, can you imagine the whole situation of an Indian family who's living in Canada? They have spent years studying, working, paying taxes, finally getting a PR, or they become a Canadian citizen. They always believed that after settling down, they would bring their parents to Canada. But suddenly, that plan has been put on hold. So the question is, why has Canada taken this whole decision? Well, the answer, it lies in growing pressure on housing, healthcare and public services. The government says it wants to control immigration number and reduce the growing backlog of applications. Right now, more than 60,000 parent sponsorship applications are already waiting in the system, and processing it can take years. Under the current immigration plan, Canada will process only a limited number of applications each year, and only from people who had earlier applied before the freeze. For thousands of Indian families, this is more than just an immigration policy. It is an emotional decision. Parents who were waiting to spend their retirement with their children, they may now have to continue living thousands of kilometers away. Families who thought that they would finally reunite may now have to wait for an unknown period. There is still one option available, and that is the super visa. Parents and grandparents can still visit Canada for longer period of time under this particular visa. But remember here, it is only a temporary solution. It does not offer permanent residency, and families must arrange expensive private medical insurance before visitors are generally not covered under Canada's public healthcare system. For many Indians, Canada has always represented family values and long-term security. But today, those dreams are becoming much harder to achieve. And yes, while some Indians are struggling to bring their parents to Canada, thousands of others are making an even bigger decision. They are leaving America and they are coming back to India. For decades, there was one dream that inspired millions of Indian students. Study hard, become an engineer, get an H-1B visa, move to Silicon Valley and build a successful career. For years, this was considered the ultimate success story, but today, something remarkable is happening. The direction of migration is changing. Instead of Indians moving to America, many are returning back to India. Well, according to recruitment firm XP, more than 15,000 highly skilled technology professionals returned to India during 2025. And yes, 1,000 more came back during the first half of 2026. What once looked like a temporary trend, it is now becoming a much larger shift. And why are they returning? Well, one of the biggest reasons is job uncertainty. The industry, specifically tech industry, has gone through repeated rounds of layoff. When an American company lays off an H-1B employee, the law gives the worker only 60 days to find another employer. Think about that. Finding a new job itself, it can take weeks or even months. Well, there are interviews, there are technical rounds, background checks, salary negotiations. By the time everything is completed, the 60-day deadline, it may already be over. That leaves many professionals with no option but to leave the country. And then comes another challenge, and that is the green card backlog. Many Indians have spent years waiting for permanent residency. While some experts estimate that employment-based green card waiting time for certain categories remain extremely long because of annual country limit. Well, for many families, spending decades on temporary visas can no longer feel like a practical option. So people are making a different calculation. Instead of waiting endlessly, why not build a future back home? India's technology ecosystem, it has grown rapidly over the past decade. Global companies have expanded their engineering centers in cities like Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune. Many returnee professionals, they are joining leadership positions, AI startup and global capability centers. And yes, at the very same time, India's hiring market is also competitive and many returnees accept low salaries than they earned in the US. You know what? For some, returning to India is not a failure. It is a fresh beginning. It is a chance to stay close to family, basically a chance to avoid immigration uncertainty and a chance to build a career without constantly worrying about visa deadline. The American dream is not disappearing, not at all, but for many Indians, the definition of success, that is changing. And yes, as technology changes career, artificial intelligence is now changing workplaces too. Well, the next story shows how AI itself has landed one of the world's biggest technology companies in courtroom. Artificial intelligence is changing the world, right? It writes everything, email, it creates images, it answers the questions, and now some employees claim that it may also be deciding who loses a job. 26 current and former Meta employees have filed a lawsuit in the US federal court. In fact, they allege that the company relied on AI-based monitoring system and internal activity matrix while making layoff decisions. Well, according to lawsuit, employees on maternity leave, medical leave, or disability leave appeared less active in the company's tracking system and they were unfairly affected. Meta has denied these allegations though, and they say that managers and not AI made employment decisions. Now imagine you are an Indian software engineer working in America. You are on an H-1B visa. You take medical leave after your surgery, or you take parental leave to care for your newborn child. If your performance appears lower because you are officially on leave, and if you are laid off, the consequences can be much bigger than you think. Well, the moment the H-1B worker loses a job, another 60-day clock that begins to tick. Find another employer, transfer the visa, or prepare to leave the country. That is why this lawsuit, it is attracting so much attention among foreign workers. The case is still before the court though, and no final decision has been made yet, but it also has raised an important question. As companies increasingly use AI and digital monitoring system, how can employees be so sure that approved leave, medical emergency, and personal situations are treated fairly? Here, experts say that foreign workers should carefully document every approved leave, keep written communication with the HR, and maintain complete employment record. They also recommend building emergency saving because sudden layoff can create both financial and immigration challenges. Well, tech today, it is making companies smarter, but it is also creating new questions about fairness, specifically for people whose visa status depend on keeping their jobs. Well, for thousands of Indians, marriage is one of life's biggest decisions, right? But unfortunately, some people have turned marriage into a business. Fake relationship, fake documents, and fake promises of Canadian permanent residency have trapped many families over the years. And now Canada has decided enough is enough. The Canadian government has issued a fresh warning against marriage fraud and fake relationship used only for immigration purposes. Immigration officials say that anyone who enters into a marriage mainly to obtain a PR, he or she could face serious legal consequences. And those consequences may include visa refusal, cancellation of immigration status, a 5-year ban from entering Canada, and even criminal actions in some cases. Now imagine this whole situation. A family in Punjab receives a proposal from someone living in Canada. Well, the promise is simple. Get married, move to Canada, and start a better life. For many families, it sounds like a dream opportunity. But you know what? Immigration officers today, they don't just look at the marriage certificate. They investigate the entire relationship, everything. They want to know how the couple met, how long they have known each other, and whether they have traveled together, whether they share financial responsibilities, whether family members know about the relationship, and whether the marriage is genuine. Canadian authorities are now using stronger background check, biometric certification, verification, social media reviews, and even surprise investigation in some cases to identify fraud applications. Officials have also identified several warning signs, by the way. A very short relationship followed by immediate marriage, large age differences, inconsistent answers during interviews, lack of shared financial record, or maybe previous sponsorship history that can all invite deeper scrutiny. For genuine couples, this means keeping proper documentation that has become more important than ever before. The message from Canada, it is simple. If your relationship is genuine, you have nothing to fear. But if somebody tries to misuse the immigration system, then the penalties are now much tougher than before. And yes, while Canada is tightening family-based immigration, another major agreement has just been signed between India and the United Kingdom. Many people expected it to create new job opportunities abroad, by the way, but let me tell you here, the reality is quite different. For months, people were waiting for India-United Kingdom free trade agreement. Many believe that this historic deal, it would make it much easier for Indians to work in Britain. Some even hope that a brand new work visa would be announced. But once the agreement was released, the reality it became much clearer. The India-UK trade agreement has officially come into force, bringing major benefits for trade between the two nations. Tariffs on many products will be reduced, businesses will find it easier to operate, and both governments expect stronger economic cooperation. But when it comes to immigration, one important thing has not changed. The United Kingdom has confirmed that the agreement does not create any new work visa category for Indian job seekers. Anyone who wants to work in Britain must still qualify under the existing immigration system, including the skilled worker route and other established visa categories. So, if somebody was hoping that this agreement would automatically open the door to Britain, this is simply not the case. However, the disagreement still brings good news for many Indian professionals. It includes provisions that make it easier for companies to temporarily send certain employees to the UK for business purposes. But wait, more importantly, a new social security arrangement means many Indian professionals on short-term assignments will no longer have to pay social security contribution in both the nations at the same time. This particular change is expected to reduce cost for companies and professionals significantly. The government believes that this will strengthen business ties and encourage more companies to expand operations between India and the UK. So, what is the biggest takeaway? Ladies and gentlemen, the real trade deal, it is excellent news for business. It is possible for trade. It is positive for trade. It is beneficial for companies, but it is not a shortcut to get a US work permit. Anybody who's planning to move to Britain will still have to meet all the existing immigration requirements. And now finally we come to our last story tonight, a story that could completely change the future of H-1B visas. Because today getting selected is no longer just about luck. It is increasingly becoming much more about salary. For years, many people believed that H-1B lottery depended mostly on chance. Submit your application, wait for the draw, and hope your name gets selected. But today, that system, it has changed. The US government has released new compensation date following the changes to the H-1B selection process. According to the data, the maiden salary of selected H-1B beneficiaries has risen to $133,000 a year. The change reflects the government's wage-weighted selection model, by the way, where higher-paying jobs receive more weight during the selection process than the low-paying position. Wait for a second. Can you think about what this really means for Indians? A fresh graduate usually starts with an entry-level salary. A young software engineer may not immediately receive a six-figure paycheck, but under the new system, lower salaries receive fewer chances, while higher-paying positions receive greater preference during the selection. So that means that experienced professionals, AI specialists, cloud engineers, and senior software architects are likely to benefit the most. And on the other hand, many small companies may find it harder to sponsor fresh graduates because offering higher salaries has become increasingly important under the new selection model. And this is changing the entire hiring strategy of American companies. Earlier, businesses could hire a large number of entry-level workers. Today, many employers, they are focusing on fewer candidates with highly specialized skills. Here for Indians, the message is becoming clear. A degree alone, it may no longer be enough for you. Continuous learning, AI skills, cloud computing, cybersecurity, data science, and specialized technical expertise are becoming more valuable than ever before. Well, the competition is no longer between two nations. It is between skills, and who keeps upgrading themselves will have the best chance of succeeding. So tonight we looked at 9 major stories, but together they tell one bigger story. America is tightening visa rule. Canada is slowing immigration and increasing scrutiny. The UK is strengthening trade, but it is not opening new immigration pathway. And around the globe, governments are rewriting immigration rules. Companies are changing hiring strategies, and technology is transforming workplaces faster than before. That's all for today. I'm Dhriti Athri, and you have been watching Skyline. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next episode.